And now we're back.
And if we undertake an obligation as leader of the free world, and we're the only leader of the world power at this point, then we have to see it through to the end, even if it's going to be difficult, even if it's going to be a little uncomfortable.
But, Mr. Chesnoff, I agree with you totally, but why do we have to learn this lesson again and again? We've been learning the lesson, since Verdun?
Well, there's short-term thinking, and it is motivated primarily by election needs. You know, we're now in the midst of an election campaign that's getting hotter and hotter and nastier and nastier, and the last thing the Clinton administration would like to see is it held responsible for body bags and coffins being greeted at Andrews Air Force Base in Washington. It just is not the kind of image that the administration wants. And so they've chosen a safe way, what they consider to be a safe way, which is to answer Saddam, as we have to answer him, with safe attacks. In other words, cruise missiles from ships in the middle of the Persian Gulf or extremely high-flying planes.
There is some argument that Saddam Hussein is voting for or against the president. What's your guess?
Well, I think that...
I mean, this couldn't have happened at a better time politically.
It couldn't have happened at a better time politically in some ways. It couldn't have happened at a worse time politically in other ways.
Explain me.
Well, I think that in the sense that it allowed the initial reaction was the Clinton administration was flexing its muscles and Bill Clinton was showing that he was no cream puff. He was going to reply to Saddam and so on and so forth. Now, of course, since it hasn't worked entirely, and Saddam is in fact coming out the net winner of this latest confrontation because he's reestablished his power and control in the north of Iraq, you have the Republicans saying, here's another example of the Clinton administration unable to take decisive action and to stick with it and not knowing exactly what they're doing. So
whatever happened to his statement is the economy, stupid?
Well, in this case, it's Saddam stupid. And I think the fact of the matter is that we still don't understand that this is a man who is, as somebody put it, a terminal prober. He will keep pushing and picking to see how far he can. He's a typical bully. He will see how far he can get. And the moment he senses that we're not willing to go all the way in battling him, he will continue and move ahead, and then he backs away. I mean, if you conceive of the amounts of money he has cost us over the past year or two in this type of probe, of seeing how far he can get and then backing down at the last minute. We have spent millions and millions in military costs in this continued attempt to contain him.
Sounds a little flippant, Mr. Chesnoff, but kidding on the square. I have a feeling that we'd be better served and save a lot of money if we went to the federal pen in Marion and said to John Gotti, we're going to let you out. All you have to do is go to Baghdad with a couple of your lieutenants and take care of Saddam.
Well,
and that'd be the end of that.
He may be one of the few people who can succeed in doing that. You know, Saddam lives an incredibly secretive life. He'd
be afraid to come out of the house.
He's afraid to come out of the house as it is now. He has managed to eliminate over the years that he's been in power thousands and thousands of his opponents. And the families, you know, in that part of the world, you don't just go after your opponent, you wipe out the entire family.
Sure.
And he has done that to his own family. The rivalry within his family is murder recently of his own sons-in-law, whom he had pardoned after they'd fled to Jordan, convinced to come back, and then had murdered within 24 hours. I mean, this is a brutal man. And because of his brutality, he does not trust anyone. I remember the head of the Saudi CIA, Prince Turki bin Faisal, told us an incredible story during the Gulf War, a group of us that met with him, how he had gone to Baghdad to see Saddam, and when they went to his palace, his presidential palace, with his number 2 aide, it turned out he wasn't in that palace. He had fooled everyone. He'd stayed, they said, in another one. They went to the second palace. He wasn't there either. He had, in fact, stayed in the third place. I mean, this is a man who does not sleep in the same place 2 nights in a row.
And you know who has his home phone number? Yasser Arafat.
Well, he may very well have his home phone number.
I have Mr. Richard Chesnoff. Richard Chesnoff Sr., Richard Chesnoff, who's the senior correspondent for U.S. News and World Report and the op-ed columnist for the New York Daily News. And we are speaking of Iraq and Saddam Hussein. What do you got to say? What do you think? 391-2800 is my phone number. We are on WOR, and we'll continue as soon as we get your phone call. 391-2800.
Quick, what station are you listening to right now? WOR.
Go wild. With the Discovery Channel. Watch Wild Discovery. It's wild. Feel the heat every weeknight. As close as you dare. All this week, meet children of the wild. From grizzly cubs to baby seals. Make a wild discovery. Every weeknight at 8 on the Discovery Channel. Explore your world.
Listen, I'm a hardworking guy, and I do look after my money. Well, I just popped open my first phone bill from Sprint Sense, and you know that dime-a-minute rate to Canada they're always talking about? Well, it turns out their rate can be as much as 65 cents. Well, if that's the case, I should have stayed with AT&T, where I can get lower rates on calls to Canada all week long. Hey, I want a company that looks after my money, too. So I'm going to take another look at AT&T.
For direct dial calls only. Enrollment required. AT&T, your true choice.
Agree? Disagree? Give the talk show host of the year a call. WOR's Barry Gray at 212-391-2800.
Creamy, creamy coconut.
And deep dark chocolate.
Coconut and chocolate.
Wow.
Luscious, creamy, crunchy, creamy coconut.
And yummy milk chocolate.
Crunchy nuts and chocolate.
Yum, yum.
Almond Joy.
Wow.
Almond Joy.
For pure chocolate coconut delight, there's nothing like Mounds and Almond Joy. So treat yourself. They're indescribably delicious.
Almond Joy. Almond Joy.
There's no place on earth quite like Lincoln Center, home to world-class performances. WOR Radio's 10th annual food tasting, A Classic Taste of New York, will be held at the New York State Theater at Lincoln Center on Monday, October 14th from 6 until 9 p.m. There'll be food to taste, beverages to sip, music by the young artists of Juilliard to hear, a taping of Weekend with Joan and Arthur to enjoy, your WOR friends to meet, and many other surprises. A limited number of tickets are available. To order, send $10 per person, check or money order, payable to WOR, to Classic Taste of New York, P.O. Box 2576, Newark, New Jersey, 07114. Orders will be filled as received. Proceeds will be given to Food for Survival. We hope you'll join us on October 14th for A Classic Taste of New York.
WOR's Classic Taste of New York is brought to you in part by NAC Vitamins, makers of Cholesterate and Trop World Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City.
Mike Forbes was born and raised here in Suffolk County. He understands this area's special needs and shares our middle-class values. As our Congressman, Mike Forbes has made staying in touch with Long Island taxpayers his top priority. That's why, as our Congressman, Mike Forbes backs the $500 per child tax credit for working families and the 100% health deduction for small business. And it's why Mike Forbes supports lowering income taxes, reforming welfare, and balancing the budget. Mike Forbes has held over 55 town meetings and helped over 5,000 Long Islanders cut red tape. But that's not all. Mike Forbes spoke out and protected tough federal environmental laws and saved 3,300 acres of precious Long Island open space. Speaking out, getting things done. Congressman Mike Forbes, in touch with Long Island taxpayers.
This is Mike Forbes, and this is paid for by the friends of Congressman Mike Forbes.
The following is an important message from the New York Lottery. Attention, New York Lottery players. Recently, the lottery introduced their new instant cash game, Vacation of a Lifetime. However, it has come to our attention that there's been some confusion about the game. The reason may be that we weren't clear enough about the top prize. If you win the big prize in Vacation of a Lifetime, you actually get two big prizes, $10,000 cash a year every year for 20 years. You also win 2 first-class round-trip airline tickets to anywhere in the world every year for 20 years. But you don't have to take the vacations to get the money. Stay home and you'll still get the money. $10,000 cash a year every year for 20 years. That's $200,000 over 20 years, a tidy little sum by anyone's standards. So now that you know what you can win, head for your lottery agent and pick up a Vacation of a Lifetime ticket. Vacation of a Lifetime. It just might be the instant cash game of a lifetime.
WOR.
We go to the telephones, and Mr. Richard Chesnoff, the senior correspondent for U.S. News and World Report, and the op-ed columnist for the New York Daily News immediately after this word. And the word simply is about money. It sometimes makes the world go round. It doesn't mean that you should get the runaround when you need a loan. And if you need a loan for debt consolidation or home improvement or for any reason, you should call GFI. Because when others say no way, GFI says okay. GFI is the mortgage banker that believes if you own your own home, they owe it to you to grant you a loan, simply, quickly. GFI, there's no application fee, no income verification, no red tape, just satisfied clients. GFI will accept your application over the phone, grant a pre-approval within 24 hours. When other lenders say no way, GFI says okay. The phone number, toll-free, 1-888-OK-LOAN-4. Again, 1-888-OK-LOAN-4. Does not apply to conventional loans, licensed mortgage bankers, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Florida. Corporate headquarters at 50 Broadway, New York. And again, the number, 1-888-OK-LOAN-4. We are on WOR, and my guest is Mr. Richard Chesnoff, the senior correspondent for U.S. News and World Report, op-ed columnist for the New York Daily News, and we are speaking of Iraq. Mr. Chesnoff, can you take some calls?
Absolutely. Delighted.
Thank you. Let's start with Andy in Connecticut.
Hi, Mr. Gray. I would like to respectfully disagree with Mr. Chesnoff. I think that we ended the war in Iraq at the right time, and I don't think I can say anything more than what George Bush said when he said we are not in the slaughter business. I think that he ended it at the right time, and I would like to draw an analogy. If I'm in a fight with, say, a schoolyard bully, and he falls to the ground and he cries, "Uncle," and he says, I give up," and I continue to kick him and punch him and, beat him, I don't think that that's really, I don't think that's right. And I think George Bush ended it at the right time. I think the Iraqi forces were in retreat. I didn't think there was any reason to continue the one-sided massacre. And I admit that Saddam Hussein is in power, and he has regained a lot of power, and he's flexing his muscle, so to speak. But I really think George Bush ended that at the right time.
Okay. Mr. Chesnoff?
Well, I'd like to carry the analogy a little further. If you were engaged in a battle with a schoolyard bully who was throwing stones at you and using bats and sticks to hit you, after you knocked him to the ground, you also wouldn't let him run away with his bats and sticks and rocks. And that's what we did. I'm not saying that it was necessarily important to slaughter the Iraqi troops. What was important was to destroy their tanks and destroy their ability to bully anybody else. And that's where the mistake was made. And by the way, I also want to tell you something about this so-called there's a great image that at the end of this war, as the Iraqis retreated from Kuwait, there were, thousands and thousands of bodies piled up. I was there within an hour of the ceasefire. There were not thousands of bodies. There was no, incredible end-of-the-world type of slaughter going on there. Most of these people ran without anything when our planes came in, and it was the equipment that was destroyed, and that's what we should have destroyed. And war involves slaughtering people. That's the sad nature of war. You cannot fight a war without killing. That's why war is so horrid.
Our next call comes from Queens. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Thanks for taking my call, Barry.
Yes, thank you.
May I just inject my observation and opinion? I think that everything the president does is timed for expediency, for his benefit. Now, this with the Kurds has been going on quite a while. If you will recall, the time that the missiles were fired was exactly the same time when David Morris's name was in the headline day after day. It was one way to get that incident off and the embarrassment off the administration, to make it look like he is really gung-ho. But I think we're getting involved more than we really want to, because I read in last night's paper that there are many of the Kurds who have been sent to Guam, and many of them are going to be sent over to the United States to be resettled here. And it also says in the paper that some of them have been found to be criminals, and they will be examined and excluded. This sounds to me like something that happened with Cuba when we got bombarded with a lot of people who were mentally incapacitated and who were criminals. How are they going to check in a short
Mr. Chesnoff?
Well, the Kurds that we're repatriating or saving are those who have worked directly with us in our aid program in northern Iraq, or have been involved in the CIA's now destroyed campaign to stage a coup against Saddam. So these are people whom we are trying to protect, because if they're left behind, they will simply be slaughtered by Saddam's secret police and by his military and by the Kurdish opposition. Where you're right is that we are engaged have been sucked into a battle between the Kurds themselves. The Kurdish people, a long-suffering people, are split. They're divided among a variety of warlords, and we've been caught in the middle of a battle between two warlords, one of whom has sought the support of Saddam, and the other has actually turned to Iran. These are people who are fighting for their very existence, and this is, in part, explains the problem that divides them. On the other hand, I think you're also right. There are such things as political expediencies. I don't believe that the president's only decision here to go after Saddam was based entirely on embarrassment over the Mars affair and so on. But it certainly was probably a factor in the decisions of what to do and how to do and when to do it and so on. Just as anything political is involved in any decision the president makes.
But I understand. Mr. Chesnoff, could it not have happened at a better time for Mr. Clinton to show him to be a fighting man?
I suppose it couldn't have happened at a better time. In the end, of course, as we said before, he's being the Republicans are trying to turn it around now and say he's proving that he wasn't much of a fighting man. I think you're right. I think it came at a time. I don't believe, however, that Saddam coordinated it with the Democratic National Committee. I mean, this was Saddam's decision to move ahead. We, in fact, should have acted a little earlier. The moment we saw 40,000 Iraqi troops moving northwards, that's when we should have acted. And
why didn't we?
We didn't because we don't. We didn't because there's always this constant hesitation to get involved and to be accused, as your previous caller mentioned, of being involved in the slaughter of human lives. There is no way that Saddam understands. Saddam understands only three things: force, force, and force. That's what he understands. And the moment he begins to try to bully and cross the line, we have to answer him immediately. He's not going to back down simply because of verbal threats.
Ralph in Westchester.
Yes, Barry, would you ask your guest...
you ask him.
Okay, Ms. Chesnoff, I assume you're old enough to remember when Truman took MacArthur out of this situation with China. Now, hindsight is wonderful, and I assume during the Bush administration, Mr. Bush and our military powers to be made a decision of how to handle the situation. Now, with the Truman situation, it was the correct thing to do. Hindsight is wonderful, and I think that's a good parallel to a decision.
No, I don't think it's a parallel at all. I don't see the analogy.
Well, the analogy, we're criticizing the Bush administration for not going on into God knows what. And I think that the president made a decision.
Chesnoff?
Well, I think you're right in the sense that I don't believe that an invasion of our forces necessarily would have been a solution. It might have complicated the situation far more than it has already by not going in. What I have been bothered by constantly is the fact that we never went after the military targets that were available to us. Yeah. I mean, you have to understand there were convoys of military equipment that had been used against Kuwait, that were threatening Saudi Arabia and threatening our troops, that were allowed to simply return. He'd lost the war. They should have been told, you have to leave your tanks behind and go home. Then we'll decide.
Which is standard procedure.
I'm sorry?
It's standard procedure.
Well, it's standard.
The vanquished give up their weapons.
Exactly. And in this case, they not only didn't give up their weapons, they were allowed to very conveniently take them back. And the argument was made that this was the smartest way to contain Saddam, to minimize what he can do, but at the same time not take him completely out of power. I think that was a big mistake. We've been faced ever since with continuing threats from him, with his refusal to dismantle his nuclear experimentation, with his refusal to dismantle his chemical and biological weapons. And, he's not going to go away. And his ambitions to control the region are not going to go away. The only way to contain him is to really contain him. And that means to totally cut off his ability to threaten anybody, any of his neighbors.
Where is John Gotti now that we need him? Richard Chesnoff is the senior correspondent for U.S. News and World Report, the op-ed columnist for the New York Daily News. We're fortunate enough to have him on the line at WOR, and we'll continue in a moment after this.
WOR. Sunday on NBC, Steven Seagal in a network premiere movie On Deadly Ground. A greedy oil company, a dangerous oil rig.
The whole damn platform is a time bomb.
An environmental disaster only one man can stop, unless the oil company stops him first.
We're running out of time.
We'll find your man. Steven Seagal, Michael Caine.
He'd need a miracle to stop us now.
On Deadly Ground.
Get out of here, this place is gonna blow.
Sunday at 9, 8 Central on NBC. Parental discretion advised.
If you're satisfied with the way you look, okay. But if you could improve your appearance with a technique that's safe and affordable, you'd do it. Well, I have a number for you, 1-800-MHN-2707. Call the physicians at MHN Cosmetic Design. You may already know of them for their outstanding results in hair restoration. They're doctor-perfected for facial rejuvenation with laser technology, body contouring with liposuction, a more beautiful nose. Call now and learn about the exciting outpatient procedures. Call 1-800-MHN-2707. Call them tomorrow for a free consultation with one of their board-certified plastic surgeons. If you want to improve your looks, change your body proportions, look years younger, call the physicians at MHN Cosmetic Design, 1-800-MHN-2707.
Well, I'm standing in the train station talking to people about how they heat their homes. Folks, can I have a minute, please?
What can we do for you?
Well,
Hey, don't you do commercials?
Put the autograph pad away, please. Now, would you mind telling me how you heat your homes?
Well, I use oil heat.
We use gas heat.
Oh, how sad.
Sad? Why sad?
You use gas heat. You're an accountant. You should know better.
Yeah.
Oil heat's much less expensive around here than gas. Look it up.
That sounds like she's got you there, pal.
Well, he probably fell for one of those supposedly big bargain conversion deals that gas companies offer once in a while. He does that sort of thing.
I think that was a shot. Did you do that, sir?
Hey, you're embarrassing me here.
Well,
What if some of my clients are listening?
well, admit your mistake.
Come on, big guy, admit it.
Well, my wife says she used to feel nice and safe when we had oil heat.
Ah, that's wimpy, but it's an admission.
Yeah, it's getting there. Come on, say the words. You were wrong to use gas heat.
Economical, efficient, safe oil heat. Today's oil heat.
It's just better. Okay, I was wrong, huh?
I'm darn proud of you. Brought to you by the Metropolitan Energy Council.
If you or someone you know lives alone, you worry about safety, what would happen in the event of a heart attack or stroke? The advanced 24-hour personal emergency response system is all the help you need. All a companion user needs to do is press the companion's pendant, and within moments, they're speaking with a professional staff member. No need to reach the phone. Fortunately, Gail Miller had the companion when she fell in the bedroom. She just pressed her pendant to speak with a monitor, who contacted help that arrived within moments. How much is security like that worth? Well, believe it or not, for a limited time, the companion voice system is yours for a mere 64 cents a day. Small price to pay for knowing that you or the person you worry about is within reach, easy reach of help. For a free companion and the special 64 cent a day offer, call 1-800-403-9998. 1-800-403-9998.
I'm Mario Perillo, Mr. Italy for Perillo Tours with terrific news. We've greatly expanded our ever-popular off-season Italy tours to include the sophistication of Milan, the beauty of Como, the excitement of Naples, the enchantment of Capri, along with the magnificence of Venice, Florence, and Rome. Trade in that run-of-the-mill winter trip for a scintillating adventure in sunny Italy. Off-season, November to April, is Perillo time, bargain time, romance time, and the weather's fine. Perillo's first class 8 to 14-day vacations start at an unbelievable $9.99. Yes, 8 days first class, $9.99, including airfare. But to get space, you've got to really, really, really hurry. For a free Perillo brochure backed by 52 years of Perillo family experience, see your travel agent or call 1-800-272-2000. That's 1-800-272-2000 now.
WOR.
I have the good fortune of speaking with Mr. Richard Chesnoff. He's the senior correspondent for U.S. News and World Report and the op-ed columnist for the New York Daily News. And we're speaking with you about what's happening in Iraq, what's happening in the United States, what President Clinton is doing. 391-2800, and Jimmy in Brooklyn, you're next.
Hello, everybody. I agree that U.S. never learns our lesson. You have to remember, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Libya were all and are all Soviet allies. And Yeltsin's fairly recent appointment of Primakov, who is in charge of the Mideast terrorist groups and the terror states, I think we're heading for big trouble again, because all these countries are rearmed, and the goal is always Middle East oil, as Brezhnev stated himself. So if we don't understand Soviet history, Marxist-Leninist subversion, we are heading for trouble again, and it's going to keep happening.
What shape will that take, Mr. Chesnoff?
Well, I think it's beginning to take some odd shapes that exist beyond the Iraq situation now as well. One of the most disturbing bits of news that we've had over the past few weeks in the Middle East is the fact that there has been a large-scale mobilization of Syrian troops for the first time in years now on and around the Golan Heights. And there is a lot of nervousness both in Jerusalem and, by the way, in Damascus as well. Now, the Syrians are claiming that they've shipped up troops to that area largely because for their own defensive needs. The Israelis are worried that this thing is going to get out of hand, and they remember the Yom Kippur War of 23 years ago this coming month.
What does that mean, Syrian defensive needs?
Well, you know, the Israelis have made it clear that the next time there is any heavy bombardment from the Iranian and Syrian-backed guerrilla forces, the Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, on Israel, that Israel will hold Syria accountable. And they'll hold Syria accountable because Syria is the country that allows the arms to reach Hezbollah. And so the Syrians are saying, well, we're going to have to defend ourselves. The Syrians may also be trying to defend themselves against some internal dissension. We don't know. They're also upset that Netanyahu, the new prime minister of Israel, is not as keen to give back the Golan Heights as his predecessors were. So there's a lot of play going on, but I don't think it would happen unless the Syrians thought that they would get away with it. And I think your caller is right. There is a new mood in Moscow now after a few years of wanting to get involved again in the Middle East. And Mr. Primakov, the foreign minister, was the architect of a lot of the Soviet foreign policy in the Middle East.
Mr. Chesnoff, I must ask, if Bill Clinton is reelected or Senator Dole becomes the next president, will there be a war in that administration?
Well, I think a lot depends on what is done in the Middle East. I don't think we can see that far forward. I think there would be willingness on the part of any administration to respond to an attack on our interests. And let's not beat around the bush. And I'm not talking about the president. The primary interest that we have in that region is to protect oil and to protect our strategic position. With all due respect to our honoring obligations to the Kurds and to Kuwait and all the rest of it, our primary obligation is to an interest that is called oil and protecting a strategic position in the Middle East. That's what's going to motivate any president, be it Bush, be it Clinton, or be it Mr. Dole.
Next call.